All right, we're live. Welcome, Tim and Grant, to the Fast Seven. Super excited to have you guys on. I think this is both of your guys' first live shows, right?
Correct.
Correct.
We should tell everyone that so they know this is your first time. Well, let's start with just introducing each other, so people get to know who you are. So, Tim, let's start with you. Who are you and what do you do? And why do you love what you do?
My name is Tim. I've been in the automotive industry since '93, dealerships, what have you, you name it. And I love what I do because I help people, I help dealerships, parts departments make the best of their inventory.
I love
And
that.
so if I can hold a hand out to help them, I feel good at the end of the day.
And what area do you focus on within the parts department? Because I know you're kind of a specific niche within with helping parts managers.
Age, idle, obsolescence inventory.
Okay.
Dealers need to get rid of it. And there's many options out there, but some of the options, and me being a purchase analysis, I buy it in one chunk. They can find other companies and they make about 5 parts a month. It's still going to take you 10 years to get rid of those parts. Whereas if you do it with me, you can get it gone today, and your return on investment will come back in 2 or 3 months because now you have room to stock the parts that you're selling 20, 30 times a month. So I try to help benefit them. I mean, I've had dealers, I called back and he's like, no, Tim, I don't have anything. Some guy already helped me get rid of all of it. And he was referring to me. I'm like, I got him clean, and that's what it's all about. I mean, I got a deal today, $115,000 worth of parts the dealers are getting rid of. How did they accumulate that much in age idle obsolescence? That's beyond me. I got another one coming from Texas, $300,000 worth of parts. It's like, who's watching all these parts? I mean, I don't know.
So
I mean,
I think a lot of it comes down to a lot of parts managers are inheriting a lot of this obsolescence. And then I actually had someone on the show a couple weeks ago. She called it COVID obsolescence. So I think there was just so many shifts going on with the industry that it's something that is part of doing business, I think, and it's
yeah.
continuously growing. And the reason why I wanted you to come on the show is to talk about the difference between a parts broker and what you do, and you highlighted that where you're offering all at once, whereas a parts broker it's a little bit slower of a process. And I think the important thing is for dealerships, and I don't know if you agree with this, is to figure out what's going to work best for you, because sometimes the aggressive option isn't the best option for them. So they have to assess whether it's going to work best for them.
Well, okay, I'll tell you the biggest difference. A broker, they call me. They're the middleman.
So you're like a buyer for the brokers.
I have a few brokers that I deal with. They'll send me the file, but then they make their profit off of making the sale. I actually buy all the parts. There is no fee. And we house it. I have 40,000 square foot warehouses full of parts that I buy. So a broker, let's say there's $100,000 worth of parts and I want to buy it for 50. I'll tell the broker I want to buy it for 50. He'll go to the dealer and say, I'll give you 45 for it. They get their 5% off of that. Well, if they would have went directly to me, they would have got the whole 50.
Okay. And then Grant, we totally haven't even gotten to you yet.
Sure.
How do you fit into the piece of this puzzle? Before you tell us how you fit in that puzzle piece. Tell us who you are, who you're with, and your background.
Yeah. So my name is Grant Smith, and I work I'm an independent agent for a company called Priority One, and we specialize in all different types of freight throughout the U.S., international. but I mainly focus on LTL, which is less than truckload volume and truckload freight. I do have some customers that we deal with flatbeds, some refrigerated units and stuff like that, but for the most part, I just stick to the LTL volume and truckload freight. So I've actually worked with TIm. I do have a number of different accounts with dealerships where they're shipping, transmissions or engines, to and from each other. He's obviously a distribution center, so when he buys parts, I help ship those parts from A to B. And I love what I do. It's a challenge. This business, it's very saturated. It's kind of like real estate agents. Everybody knows half a dozen of them. But getting new customers is exciting, and being able to help them out and give them good pricing and so forth. It's a challenge, but it's sales, so it's very exciting when you get new customers. So
Yeah,
that's kind of what I do.
I like that, and I think there's a lot to that piece of obsolescence too. It's like the shipping part of it. You can
Sure.
get rid of it, and then there's the physical part of getting rid of it, and I think that can be overwhelming to a parts manager or a parts operation.
Sure.
So yeah, if you guys want to talk us through just that process of okay, so Tim, you make an offer and you're buying all the obsolescence. How quick and easy is it to start getting rid of it physically?
For getting rid of it on my end?
Well, yeah. What's the process? So
I can't give away the farm, but no. I mean, we sell it. I have e-commerce. I'm on the national locator, everything.
I think I'm just trying to ask, for the parts manager, what does that look like for them to, once they're getting rid of the obsolescence with you, what does that process look like? I don't think that's giving the farm away, right? That's just a process.
Yeah. The process is they pack the parts and then refer Grant and get it shipped to me. And once it's done, it's out the door for them. And then once we receive it, we check it in, and then we ask for an invoice, and I send them a check the next day. It's a pretty simple process, but like you said earlier, pandemic, what have you, I don't want to say the C word, but I had a dealer that accepted a deal in December. I just got it last month because they're shorthanded. They don't have the manpower to actually pack and stack all this stuff and get it out to me. So that's a big obstacle right there for dealers right now.
And that was kind of my concern is yes, you can offer to buy it, but everyone's shorthanded and to actually pack it and get it. So does that where Grant, do you kind of facilitate and help kind of with that process?
Sure. So I've dealt with a lot of different parts managers that Tim has referred me to. On my end, it's pretty simple. When they're doing the LTL, which is less than truckload, usually 1 to 6 pallets, when they're dealing on that size or that scale, usually it's pretty much zip code to zip code is the information that I need, so we know what the distance is, weights, dimensions, and then the commodity that's being shipped, because there's all different types of classifications and codes in shipping, and they want to know, what's in that trailer. And so it matches the paperwork. But once I have that from the customer, I can usually get them a quote within 10 minutes of what the cost is going to be for getting that product from A to B. So it's fairly simple on my end. Just need, just a little bit of information from the customer.
Well, also mention, Grant, you have a system set up with your company that they can get an account and they could do it all online. Boom.
Sure. So I do have some customers that like to book their own shipping, where I can create a username and log in for them that they can go in and, provide themselves their own quotes. We do use all major carriers. on the LTL side of things. So they're able to go in there, put in that type of information, and then it'll generate, different carriers with different prices.
Well, and that's one thing we're on the same page with. Because of the situation, shorthanded, what have you, we need to make it as seamless and painless as possible for these parts managers or what have you to get what they need to get done.
Sure.
Yeah. It looks like we got a comment. I don't know if he's still hanging out because I know things are a little delayed, but he took over and he pulled the return. So that's a lot of parts, 250,000. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think the quantity was on that value? How many physical parts were there? It's a lot of work.
It probably all varies, Tim. No, I mean, based off of what the actual parts were.
Yeah, the type of parts. Man, that's a lot of work. Let's shift a little bit and talk about obsolescence as a whole, because I know, Tim, your background is in parts consulting, and then you were a parts manager for several years too, correct?
Correct. Since '93.
Okay, so you've got some experience.
I'd say myself.
That's okay. So what is your perspective on obsolescence? Why is it still such a issue?
We're trying to be nice about this answer. It has to do with management. It really does. If you're not staying on top of it, it's going to keep building up and collecting dust. I mean, I worked at a dealership and had over $300,000 worth of parts, and they wanted me to buy the mechanics anyways. Buy more. Why don't you have this? Because I only sold one in a year. And my response was, go to the owner, get a suitcase, tell me you want $300,000, and we're going to set it on the shelf and let it collect dust. That's the epitome of what that is, that idle inventory. After 9 months, the odds of you selling that part are slim to none. So why do you want to keep it? Does Kroger leave a loaf of bread on there for 9 months? No. They change their stock and they put back on there what they're selling.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes no sense. But it is what it is.
No, it is. Yeah.
I mean, it's really what it is. You gotta do perpetual inventory, whatever. Check your shelves. What haven't you sold? What DMS are you on? Run 9 months and older aged inventory report. You haven't sold it. Send me an Excel file. I'll send you a proposal. It's that simple. I don't charge for that. I don't do any of that. And then when they accept the proposal, next thing is they pull the parts. They send them to me. We check them in. We send them a check. Done.
Yeah. Yeah, and Brian just said it has a 5% chance. That's pretty accurate. Because I know when we work with dealerships, we track the 7 to 12 month category, and that's those are the ones that have the 5% chance of selling. And then once you go over that, it's just zero.
That's my friend Brian Daniel.
Nice.
We were consultants together. He knows the business.
Good.
Yep.
Well, yeah, you can tell. So what other things are you guys seeing going on in the industry? As you're talking to dealerships and dealing with, do you see any opportunities that dealerships might be missing, or how are you feeling about the industry? And I want to get Grant's perspective as well as an outsider, because you're working in the industry, but you're kind of outside the industry, as I understand it. So I do want your perspective too, Grant.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll have Tim go first so you can think.
Oh, one thing, I mean, I know for the last year and a half, it's been hard for dealerships, shortage of parts, shortage of cars, inventory, so that's really hurt dealerships. And what I struggled with is getting dealers to sell me parts because they're scared to get rid of them. even though they haven't sold them in over 9 months. I mean, I have a Fed that's in Iraq. They want to get rid of $3 million worth of parts right now. And the reason is they stocked up before the pandemic and they overbought. So now they're stuck with all these parts. Everyone got kind of scared, overstocked when they could, and now they're stuck with all this inventory.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is a balance of really finding the right breadth and width for what is your true demand in your market. Because I hear that a lot. People stock up, but it's like you don't need 100-year supply of that part. That doesn't make sense. So there's the right mix of parts. And I know you get that. Grant, what about you on just kind of being a little bit on the outside of what are some opportunities that you think that we're missing in automotive, just in your line of work?
That's a tough question for me. Because a lot of what I do, I mean, it seems to always come down to pricing. So it's not necessarily like, oh, I like this guy better than the next guy. I mean, we're all kind of running from the same pool of companies, but a lot of it comes down to pricing with some of these managers and stuff like that. But as far as what we're missing, I don't know. I'd have to think about that one honestly, Kaylee, because I just don't know enough about, I guess, the dealership or parts industry on that part of it. So I
That's okay.
But no, that's a huge factor. I've had dealers, oh, it's $4,000 to ship all these parts. They're already pulled, ready to go. They don't want to pay the freight. So, I mean, we teamed up with Grant, and he's got the best prices around. So we can get that price level down so the dealer can ship the parts. And Grant has a lot of obstacles. And the one dealer right now with the $300,000, he wanted a trailer dropped at the dealership because he didn't have room to stage all these parts. Well, that's another obstacle, but we overcome it, and hopefully it's going to be shipping out this week. But there's always obstacles, trials, tribulations, whatever you want to call it. But
well, I would say it's hard to spend more money on something that is not making you money.
Sure.
But what you got to remember, if they get rid of all those parts, their return on investment, even though they're selling at a discount and paying freight, their return on investment, if they restock parts they're selling 20, 30 times a month, they're going to make their money back in 2 to 3 months.
Well, exactly. That's the whole thing is when we're talking to dealerships and they're working on obsolescence and getting rid of it, it's like the biggest thing is don't let it come back. Why? Yeah. We're going to pay this money to get rid of it. So we need to shift. It's not as simple as getting rid of the obsolescence. Shifts need to happen in process. I think what Brian said, special orders. Where is that?
Right here. You got to stay on top of your special orders.
Yeah, special order process. The data, how you're tracking your inventory and all the different sources in your DMS, that's how you can get ahead of it not getting back. I mean, you're still going to always kind of have obsolescence, I guess, but having 250,000 in obsolescence is way too much probably for anyone.
And like you said earlier, Gailey, a lot of dealers, parts managers inherit this. They didn't create it. They're a new parts manager. So now they're like, what do I do with it? Mm-hmm. They didn't create it. They inherited it. So I'm the scapegoat, whatever. Sell it to me. Let's clean it up. I mean, I did that at the first dealership that I work out here in Arizona. I got rid of $25,000 in the first 2 months. Sorry, parts have been sitting on the shelf for over 12 months. Mm-hmm. Not selling. Got rid of it.
We're getting lots of comments. This is good. Do you guys know Vernon Swords? Do you guys know who that is? He must be someone.
Hello.
No, hello. Yeah, so he mentioned you guys using, let's see. independent broker, or is that a question for you, Tim?
Giving away the farm. Yes, I am on OE Connection.
Oh.
Yes, I have e-commerce set up.
All right, and then let's see, what did Brian say? Yeah, just staying on top of the manufacturer returns too, because there are manufacturers that do protect. But that I mean, that's another thing we talk about too, because they don't protect everything. So you got to track it and stay ahead of it for sure.
And if you don't send it back on time, you're stuck with it.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to follow the guidelines.
Just so you know, Brian has been in the business for 30 years, so he knows what he's doing.
Oh, I can tell.
Yeah.
He's interacting. Oh, voice commands. He was correcting his thing. Don't you love that when you, yeah. So let's shift a little bit to wrap up the show. So we talked about obsolescence, talked about the difference between a parts broker and what you're doing as a purchasing analyst. We talked about how just obsolescence is an obstacle, and it's important to track it and get ahead of it. Trying to think what else I wanted to ask you guys. As you know, as far as the industry goes and what we're doing, is there anything that you guys want to bring up or talk about? Because I mean, anything that's going on in the parts world, you want to?
I just highly recommend dealers stay on top of their inventory and send me files and let me buy them. I mean, automation, red stores send me a file every 2 months. They clean it out. Automation doesn't want any of their stores to have aged idle inventory.
No. So yeah, so if anyone has wants to get in contact with Tim and wants to know what he does, and you know, you can send them a list or whatnot. We'll make sure you make your contact information available in the comments. Maybe just let people know, like, this is how to reach me. And same with you, Grant.
Sure.
But other than that, I think we covered, you know, what you guys do. It's very important to have resources available to get rid of obsolescence. And I think we all agree that you want to get rid of it, but also help maintain it so it doesn't grow so crazy again. Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Kaylee. You have a fabulous rest of your day.
You too.